Welcome to Marketing Demystified, the podcast that connects the dots for business leaders to drive revenue through effective marketing strategy. We chat with marketing experts on different topics that will help you ramp up your revenue. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms. Marketing Demystified, the podcast, is presented to you by GrowGetter, your partner in growth marketing. And here's today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered with practical tips to boost your marketing efforts? You are in the right place. Welcome to Marketing Demystified. I'm your host, Jenn Mancusi, CEO and co-founder of GrowGetter, your growth marketing partner. Now, every year, HubSpot publishes its State of Marketing report. This is one of the most cited benchmarks in our industry. This year, they surveyed 1,505 marketers across US, Europe, Asia, and Australia. And one key takeaway, in the age of AI, the teams that are coming out on top have one thing in common. It's a clear point of view, a strong brand, and what HubSpot's CMO is calling good taste. Today, I'm joined by Kyle Denhoff, Senior Director of Marketing at HubSpot. Kyle's on the team behind the report and is here to walk us through what 1,500 plus marketers said about where marketing is headed in 2026 and what it means for those figuring out what to focus on next. We're going to talk about why AI is making content less effective, why brand POV and taste matter more than ever, and why the marketers leaning into personalization are pulling ahead. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me.
So excited to have this conversation. That's a lot that we're going to cover today. There's a lot in the report. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite. I'm excited to dive into it.
Absolutely. So before we dig into the data, can we set the stage a little bit on the report? HubSpot's putting out this report every year. What were the biggest marketing trends in 2026 that you were tracking going into the research? And how did the methodology evolve versus last year or previous reports that you guys have done?
Yeah. So obviously, it's a report that we put out annually. I think our marketing team has really invested in how can we educate the community on what we're seeing across all our customers, all of our own channels. And so we've invested in the industry reports, and we've also done a lot of pulse surveys, which are generally like monthly reports that are a little shorter. But the reason we're starting to do that more often is the industry's just fundamentally changing right now. We're still investing in those like core bedrock pieces of marketing and advertising around communications and brand reach and demand gen. But the way people are working is fundamentally changing. The way that our buyers are actually finding HubSpot before they talk to sales is changing. And so we felt this year it was really important to dive into some of those nuances and those shifts, because most years it's more around like, what are some of the channel pivots or learnings that we've seen? This year it was really about, okay, there's a fundamental shift happening in the market. What are we seeing, and then how are we reacting to it? So we wanted to take the time to ask those 1,500 marketers, and then also layer on our perspective from our own internal data and teams. And so this year's report really dives into the AI shift, go figure. And then also this swing back to brand, right? I think there's a lot of folks who are investing in owned media products, a lot more executive social, true like brand building that doesn't have the attribution that the growth marketers have built on over the last decade. So this year's report really focuses on that fundamental shift.
Yeah, that's huge because it isn't just about like, hey, we're seeing more video or we're seeing, blog is performing this way. That like the shift in how buyers are doing the research and ultimately getting into the pipeline, that's not a marketing change. That is a business change. It's a human change and a social change, and that's really difficult to navigate.
Yeah, for sure. I think like one thing I talk to my team a lot about is if you think about the old way of doing it, we were identifying those keywords, we were clustering those keywords, we were writing the blog post to target that keyword, rank, get the click, get the traffic, get the conversion. It was a very like linear motion, and we were able to scale that significantly for over 10 years. But at this point, if you think about even like your own buying habits, in the morning, I'm probably giving my attention to 4 or 5 different apps on my phone, right? Like I'm probably checking Gmail with my coffee. I'll listen to Spotify when I drive to the gym. When I log on, I probably open up Claude or ChatGPT. And then if I need to learn something new about one of the latest tools, I probably hop onto YouTube where someone shows me a tutorial. Our buyers are doing that. And so we have to shift the way that we market and say we can't just focus on one channel, one content type. We actually have like people's attentions dispersed across all these different channels. How do we invest in a program that can scale across channels and ultimately get visibility up for HubSpot? So a lot of this year's report focuses on that. Like, how do you increase your visibility online, and what are some of the tactics businesses are doing to do that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the other thing that's interesting is that you're pulling this from not just the survey of marketers that you're getting their input, but your own HubSpot's own experience, which is just such there's so much value in that combination.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's validating. I think we
Yeah.
we make sure that the report is objective, and we're putting out the questions and bringing that data back, and then we're able to say, "Oh, that's actually different than how we've approached it," and maybe we make an adjustment ourselves, or yes, we are seeing that as well, and here are some like internal case studies or commentary that we can add that are helpful.
Mm.
So like one of the ones that came up in the report is this like AI content paradox, right? Where AI is enabling us to make more content. And so marketers are like, awesome, I can, have an editor and a researcher and help me write more blog posts and emails, etc. But the challenge with that is like if you publish more content, the channels where we're trying to reach the buyer are getting noisier. And a lot of that content is actually like regressing to the mean because it's AI is trained on what's already in the market. And so what we've tried to figure out is okay, if marketers are going to invest more in content creation, so the report says I think it's like 83% or so are going to create more content this year because they have the ability to with the right tools, then how do you get people to actually notice that content? And that's where our perspective comes in, where we've invested in HubSpot Media over the last 5 years, where we operate more like a media company and we talk more about new perspectives and editorial angles and original research, which are all things that the algorithms, Google's EAT guidelines and the LLMs are looking for. And so you start to actually bring that together. So you're like, okay, the market is producing more content, but internally, we've been doing that for a couple of years. And here's how we think you can do it as a marketer and get the results you're looking for because it is nuanced. And so I think it's important to bring those two perspectives together.
Yeah, for sure. That AI content paradox is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's no secret that there's like way more content out on the
Way more.
internet,
Yeah.
and it's very easy. It's getting easier and easier to spot the quality content from the stuff that is getting AI generated. But I also think that the performance metrics have really shifted
Hmm.
in what does it mean for content to perform, like what you were describing before. We've got our keyword clusters and we write our articles and they get like, we get good SEO boosts and
Yep.
everybody's happy, right? We're seeing charts up and to the right. But that definition of how content performs is changing based on, uh, all of the different channels that it's getting sucked up into.
That's the one thing that we've been trying to figure out over the last couple of years inside HubSpot Media, which is our content arm. So we had those performance metrics, right? So on the organic side, it was rank, organic traffic, conversion rate, demand, and you could look at leads and QLs coming through that channel. On the paid side, you were running a similar linear funnel where you're going, okay, meta ads, click through rate, landing page visits, conversion rate, leads, QLs, et cetera. And then you're looking at your cost per lead and your ROAS. With these new channels, newsletters don't operate that way. YouTube doesn't operate that way. Podcasts don't operate that way. Social certainly doesn't operate that way unless it's paid. And so we've had to think about okay, what are the different metrics that you're going to track across each one of these content channels? And there's metrics that we call more signals. So they're quality signals. Is my content good? And is my audience being retained? And then there's like the business performance metrics, right? So am I still bringing in net new contacts into that media property? And am I converting those net new contacts into demand for the business? I still think that piece of it is still critical, right? Is your content programs have to generate demand for the company. And so those fundamentals haven't shifted. I think the way that marketers think about their distribution channels has changed, and they need to learn those quality signals across all these different platforms,
Mhm.
which is different than I'm obsessing over keyword research in my blog strategy, which is still critically important, but I think you have a bigger mix now.
Yeah, for sure. And that's hard to learn
Mhm.
what are the metrics that actually matter in each of those different contexts. Like what actually is the quality signal on podcast or on, some other channel
Yeah.
versus just the click through rate. They got to our website, they stayed on it for a certain amount of time, and then they went to another page to learn more. Great. Like that's not happening quite as much, or it's happening differently.
Mhm.
I think there's not only like what you mentioned, like learning the metrics for these other channels, but
Yeah.
also being able to communicate that internally to stakeholders who are still asking about the old metrics.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I tell people I've been in the room when the CFO says, "Show me the math."
Right.
And
Me too.
it's a scary moment, but, like, if you're a marketer who understands media consumption and then measurement back to the business, you can start to tell that story. Now, certain channels were always brand building channels, and so I always try to attach to the brand building metrics that the business understands. So if you're a larger company, that may be brand awareness and consideration, aided, unaided. If you're a smaller company, it may just be like total reach or branded search. And if you're able to get your total reach and your branded search rising each and every month, hopefully that generates more interest and creates more demand at the top of the funnel. But then there's the demand capture piece, which the internal teams, have been accustomed to, which is that direct attribution of how many leads did I get from this channel? How many QLs did I get from this channel? And so that's still part of this, but I do think there's a balanced story. So one of the things in the state of marketing report really talks about the emphasis on video. And we've
Mm.
been heavy investors in YouTube over the last couple of years. The report had shared, I think 48% of the respondents ranked short form video as a number one priority or top ROI channel for them. Now, how do you tell the CFO short form video is a strong return on investment for the business? They're not going to care about the impressions from that. But what they are going to care about is, are you able to generate more reach and brand impressions on a platform like YouTube for our business? And then the best thing about YouTube is once people are in buying mode and they're able to search for content, YouTube is cited quite often in Google's AI overviews. It's cited quite often in other LLMs like ChatGPT and Perplexity, and people are going to find you and watch the video and click and convert. And I think that's the one strength that YouTube has, is it has the brand building piece of like, can I increase my visibility online? But then it also has the demand capture piece, and we've been able to prove out that we can bring in qualified leads for sales through our YouTube network. So
Mm.
I think video is a place where we're going to continue investing over the next couple of years, and you'll see that in the report.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I wanna go back to brand in a second, but we can stay on
Yeah,
video while we're here. This is like I guess it's maybe not even specific to video, but the concept that there are channels that are getting fed into the LLMs that aren't necessarily your website, right? Where previously
right.
search was really focused on driving traffic to your website,
Yeah,
whereas the answer engines aren't necessarily linking to your website, but they are mentioning you, and they're
mhm,
not always pulling those answers from your owned channels. So
yeah,
if you can exist on YouTube, or I get this question a lot from clients about
mm,
directory listings. What do
sure.
you think? Should I renew my directory listing here? We haven't really gotten a lot of traffic from it. Well, the LLMs are pulling the descriptions from those directory listings and you're showing up in the answers. So to be able to, I love that identifying which channels are serving a brand purpose and a demand purpose at the same time, and giving you multiple metrics to be looking at, is really powerful. And something like short form video, I mean, we've been seeing that for a number of years, that the short
Mhm.
form way outperforms the long form, even on YouTube.
Sure.
But being
Yeah.
able to tie it together to the rest of the strategy is really interesting.
Yeah, that's the, one thing is I do to your point around like, are we getting referenced in the LLMs and then like
Mhm.
the short form video? As marketers, we've always had to create a balanced portfolio of brand building activities and demand capture activities. I think those activities are just shifting right now,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, okay, if I have my demand capture activities, I still have traditional search, but that's been disrupted. And now I have AI search and answer engine optimization. And to your point, we actually see within the HubSpot AEO tool that citations from those answer engines are actually a majority of them are coming from offsite activities.
Yeah.
So they're pulling in from Reddit threads, they're pulling in from LinkedIn posts, they're pulling in from YouTube videos, review sites, as you mentioned. And so when I'm coming up with my demand capture strategy, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I have to have both on-site, off-site plans to be able to capture people who are in the market to buy my products and services. And I will say, like the LLMs, at least from our perspective, are sending more qualified traffic to HubSpot.com. So we are focused more on demand capture
Mhm.
topics and content to try and be cited and then ultimately capture that demand for the business. And then our top of funnel activities for the demand creation are where our media teams live, YouTube and social and podcasting. And you're able to pretty much create these two always on programs that'll move buyers through that, traditional funnel. We now call it the loop because it's more always on than
Yeah.
a funnel that has a start and an end date. But I think you'll see that in the report is marketers are trying to do both right now, and it's actually hard to figure out like where do I spend my time.
Yeah, totally. The loop is really interesting to me. I heard the loop presented at Inbound last year,
Yep.
introduced at Inbound last year, and now
Yeah.
I'm excited to go to Unbound in
Yeah. Yeah.
in September. But I think that that shift, even from I don't know how many years you guys have been talking about Inbound, for that to now be sort of moving into the loop and like shifting away from the funnel, it speaks to a lot of what is kind of showing up in the report here about the massive shift happening in marketing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a ton of connections here is like the loop framework we've probably been building for the last 3 or 4 years. We
Mhm.
hadn't like codified it and brought it to the market yet, but internally our teams are trying to figure out, okay, when these channels face headwinds and our dashboards turn red, where are the other channels where we should be spending our time and investing and where are those opportunities that we have in the market? And I think in the report, you'll also see we talk about short form video. We also talk about influencer as like a big part of the mix now. So in the report, I think it was something like 60% of marketers are now investing in influencer going into 2026. Influencers a big part of the mix for B2C. I think you see like the
Mhm.
Unilevers of the world and the P&Gs like investing in influencer. B2B has been catching up and we've been running influencer for 4 years across YouTube, podcasts, newsletters, and now social this year. And it's a very efficient channel for us. The reason I say that is audiences gravitate towards people, not brands. And so when we
Mhm.
work with these creators, one, we have mutual interests. Hey, we're trying to reach this audience, provide them value, educate them. And then once they recommend HubSpot, whether that's a product or a piece of content, the audience converts at a pretty efficient rate because they're already trusted. There's a built in trust value there, as opposed to trying to sell you with an ad in your feed. And so, influencer's been a big shift as well. In the report, you're seeing things like AI, video, and influencer, which is all part of our amplify strategy within the loop. These are always on channels for us right now. Like we are doing
Mhm.
influencer every single month because it's driving pipeline for the business.
Mm. Yeah, super interesting how the channels are expanding and shifting. And
Yeah.
before we get into more specifically some of the best practices on those channels. I do want to take a
Yeah.
step back to brand, and
Cool.
not leap over that for
Sure.
too far. But this has been a big conversation amongst
Mhm.
the B2B marketing community for a while, and the shift away from lead generation. We've been bashing lead gen for a number of years now, which I love. But this report makes a strong case for brand differentiation, and why
Yeah.
that matters really more than it ever did before. Can you talk a little bit about that data, and for a team that feels like they don't have that clear point of view,
Sure.
how do you start to build that? And I
Mhm.
mean, the concept of having good taste, like how does that all play into this brand differentiation and the
Yeah,
importance of it?
I'm glad you actually brought us back there because it's easy to skip over. I do it myself. You
Mhm.
jump to channels and tactics, but the channels and tactics only work if you have a good foundation.
Mhm.
And so the foundation for us as marketers has always been brand strategy, right? What's our mission? What's our vision? What's our elevator pitch? What are our three supporting talking points? And what are the case studies or proof points to back that up? And then from there, what's our visual identity? What are our logo icons, the visual composition of the photography, all of that. All of that used to live in a Google Drive, and we would access it and download the files and throw it into Canva or HubSpot and build something and go. And we're getting to this point now where we're seeing, at least from our side, there's more content going in the market, which you and I talked about. And so you have to stand out. And the only way to stand out is to actually have new perspective, point of view, and some sort of creative that stands out in the feed. I think B2B historically has gotten trapped in things that look B2B. And so for HubSpot and HubSpot Media in particular, we've done things like develop editorial brands. We've talked to our customer proof team and said, how do we do case studies in a unique and different way? And so for marketers now, I think we're getting back to the space of like getting to be creative, not just chasing the performance metrics in the dashboard. And within media, right? We have pitch meetings on Mondays. And it's like, okay, what are we creating? What's the angle? Who's got a connection here? What story can we tell? And I think that's critically important to start to drive more interest for your brand. So as you're publishing more on social, running your brand advertising, publishing on YouTube and other channels, you have to do the pre-production work and say, how do I want to say it? What's my angle? What's my hook? What's the creative execution that looks different? And that's what's actually going to help it perform, right? Because we're all chasing the performance metrics. We want to hit our traffic number and our lead number and our pipeline number. But the only way that happens now is if your channel investments perform. And the only way the channel investments perform is if you stand out. And so
Mhm.
it's so important to be able to invest in that brand foundation up front. To your question of like, if I'm just getting started, a lot of what I love now, like I've worked at big companies, I've worked at small companies. Big companies will pay an agency and they'll go do customer research and market research. And then they'll talk to the executive team and they'll shape all of those insights into the messaging architecture, the brand style guide, the look and feel. And it comes out beautifully. That work that used to take months for an agency can actually be done in a few weeks internally or with an agency where you're able to understand, why do my customers pick me? What do they care about? What's my differentiation in the market? Just to give like tangible examples, I was working on a small business and the first thing that I did for them was I called 5 of their customers. I was like, "Hey, why'd you choose them? Was it price? Was it a benefit? What did you like? What don't you like?" And you start writing down those notes, and if you're using Google or Zoom, you can transcribe all those notes, and that becomes data to help you inform the brand strategy. And then I went out to Meta and I looked at the Facebook ads library and I took screenshots of all their competitors' ads because that's publicly available information. That's
Mhm.
all data that feeds into the brand strategy work. Like, how do my uh, competitors position themselves? What are they talking about? What does their creative look like? And you pull all that in, and then you can start to build this documentation, the messaging, the creative, et cetera. And that'll be your foundation, going forward. But for any marketer who maybe isn't doing that, I would carve out a month and be like, you know what? I'm just going to do a reset. I'm going to figure out my look and feel, my messaging, and then I'm going to really push that messaging and that creative through all of my channel programs the rest of the year, cuz without it, things feel disconnected and buyers don't recognize you.
Yeah. And I think that differentiation piece can become like, first of all, I'm a big proponent of customer research and customer interviews. So thank you for mentioning that. That's got to be like at the heart of what we do when we're thinking
Yeah,
about brand is like that we understand the problem that you're trying to solve and we are uniquely qualified to solve that problem. That's what we need to say as
for sure.
marketers. But the differentiation piece can be very difficult when
Yeah,
we're all feeling like we're solving the same problem for the same group of people.
sure.
And I just had a conversation earlier today with a friend who they're going through a rebrand and they have a couple
Okay.
new names and wanted some my opinion on the new names. And we
Yep.
kind of took it to like, okay, let's think about the tagline. Let's think about the brand point of view for
Yep.
regardless of which name we end up with and which one starts to sound like everybody else in the industry and which one actually feels like it's standing out.
Yep.
And just like thinking through that a little bit, it's not just the name, right? It's how is this going to become our campaign for the year, our, demand engine?
Mhm.
And are we going to be able to, like, does it lend itself well to a unique position in the market
Yep.
versus just saying what everybody else is saying?
I love that you went to the tagline and the messaging too, because when we talk to our teams, I always say to them, I'm like, copy before creative. Like, I
Mhm.
really don't care what it's gonna look like until I know what you're saying. We have been trained to, like, look at the dashboards and build the spreadsheets and the 3-year models and the 5-year models and the growth rate and the scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, right? Growth marketers. But at the end of the day, like, we are communicators. We're communication professionals. It's like we are going to sell you on our brand and on our product and our mission. And so I love that you are like, we're going to go to the tagline and the messaging first, because it actually really doesn't matter what you call yourself. It's like, what's the promise and can you deliver on that promise? And I think some of those brand fundamentals are coming back, right? Where we're spending
Yeah.
more time with our team. I'm like a brand junkie. I have like books on like brand planning from the 70s and like all this stuff on my
That's
shelf
great.
over here. But it's where are we today? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? And if we know where we want to be and how do we get there, how are we going to talk about ourselves in the market and how are we going to sell ourselves in the market? All of that is research and messaging work before
Mhm.
you even touch the creative or the channel work. So I think that context is critical. And that's where in the state of marketing report, we talk about, we're saying taste, right? I think it's like
Mhm.
61% said taste and brand point of view are more important now that AI is publishing more content. Taste is a result of the research strategy and messaging work. And it doesn't need to be slow. Like, we don't need to operate in like kind of the old agency mindset of months and months and months, but we do need to talk to customers. We do need to see what they're saying online, and then we need to craft an opinion. And that is what's going to actually make you stand out. So I love that you went straight to the tagline and the messaging, because I think that's important, really important.
Yeah. Well, I think it's you've got to think about what you're going to say, what you're going to say
Yeah.
to people. Make somebody feel something, not just like tell them what you do and the features of your product or whatever. It's, you have to connect with people. Like you said, you're communication professionals and the tactics don't matter as much. There's a million different marketing things we could try. We should be experimenting all the time. I'm a big believer like I mean, marketing is so different today from when I studied it in college, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
in college, Facebook wasn't a thing yet. So we weren't talking about any of this stuff. I was like coding websites with HTML, right? That's what I was learning in
Oh, yeah.
college, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
I was a Dreamweaver guy. I got you.
Dreamweaver, Quark. I was designing in Quark for those of you
Yeah.
who are as old as I am. But it in order to still be relevant as a marketing professional, you have to be experimenting. You have to be trying
Yeah.
things that you don't know if they work. Our job is not necessarily to know what's going to work and execute on the thing we know it's going to work. We have to
Mhm.
find the new things that are working all the time because it's constantly changing.
Yep.
But if we're building on that solid foundation of the message, and people like that, like you're saying, the clear point of view, the taste, that will rise above everything else and
Yeah.
will allow us to play with the tactics and, measure them effectively and whatever.
Yeah, and with AI, that the brand strategy, the messaging, the taste, it works its way into all the assets and channel strategies now more than ever because AI can understand it and then bring it in as your copy editor. So
Mhm.
before, right, we joke all the time, like sometimes brand strategy just lives in a Google Drive and dies, and you're just like, that's not the case anymore. In HubSpot, not to plug the tool, but it is pretty cool. The product marketing team would be happy with me for saying this. But you can plug your brand strategy work into the settings of HubSpot. So you can put your logo, your color palette, your tone of voice, your industry, your ideal customer profile, all the research and messaging that you and I've talked about. You can actually enter it into our software. And then the AI within the tool will reference it when it writes a social post. It'll reference it when it helps you edit a blog post. And so that's the always on motion of AI that I think is critical is if you do the brand strategy work up front, you know what you stand for, you know your word selection, what you say, what you don't say, and then you actually use these AI tools. They're not doing the work for you. But when you're a marketer who's like, I need to put together my channel and my asset strategy, when I'm creating my materials, I feel more confident that I'm hitting the right tone of voice. I'm talking to my buyer in the right way because AI is kind of quality checking me. It's saying, like, yeah, that's right. That's actually how it's positioned or how it's not positioned. And so you don't have this like back and forth with the brand team or a document and you're sitting there trying to make sure it's perfect. You're putting your ideas and your strategy out there, and then the AI is helpful to be kind of an assistant to kind of walk you through things and make sure that that subject line hits, make sure that that intro paragraph hits. That's the other piece. Now that I'm just kind of on a roll on this, is there's the brand component. Am I using the right words and message? And the second piece of this is the performance component of it. So I think one of the things that we're trying to figure out now is, can you look at, okay, what subject lines had the highest open rate over the last 30 days? And can I feed the highest open rate subject lines back into the tool so then when I write my next subject line,
Mm.
it's closer to what was a high performer for me in the past. So I think AI is helping you with two things: consistency in your message and your brand, but then also performance, because you're not waiting until the month end report or the quarterly business review to take a look at everything. It's just saying, hey, over the last 30 days, this was the subject line that had the highest open rate. Maybe when you write your next one, consider this word or consider this flow. So that's what we're excited about. We're testing that constantly at HubSpot.
I love that. I love the like putting the data back into the work that we're doing because that's what we are hopefully doing as smart marketers is looking at what's working and trying to replicate it or seeing what's not working and optimizing it. So feeding that into the engines that are helping you create is really powerful. What would you say is like the most important skill to kind of come into this process as a human, right? If
Mhm.
AI is taking some of these tasks off of our plate, like what skills should I be, kind of perfecting in order to use the AI tools effectively and also kind of
Right.
make sure that the output is still human.
Yeah. There's like there's a conversation on LinkedIn right now with the marketing community. I think Emily Kramer from Market One put out Gen Marketer. The Profound team did like marketing engineer. I think people are trying to define how the work gets done going forward. And before we kind of built these teams that were very specialized. It's like it's your SEO person, your email person, your brand content person, your social person, etc. As marketers, I think because AI gives us some capabilities and skills that we may not have ourselves, you become more well-rounded. And so for me, I think the fundamental skills for any marketer are actually the same. It's like the strategic skills of, how do I identify who my target buyer is? What am I going to say to them? How do I communicate to them? What channels am I going to use to reach that buyer? And then how do I drive traffic and conversion and demand through those channels? And I think you're going to start to see more marketers move into what Emily Kramer is calling like the Gen marketer, where you can actually do more of the full funnel work, or the full loop work, as we're saying, where you're going to still have to know how to write and communicate. I think that's critical. The second piece is you're going to have to know how to like orchestrate the AI tools to help you. So, to give you like a tangible example, within my team, I have some marketers that are great writers, but we're doing some trainings with them on, okay, how do you build a specific Claude skill? How do you build a specific workflow inside HubSpot? How do you connect Canva and HubSpot together to help you with an asset you're developing? And so they're going to still have their skills of the writing piece and the communication piece, but now we're equipping them with some of the more like technical integration skills so that they can get the work done and not have to rely on other people. Similar thing with our technical marketers, folks who are more data driven and built out custom Claude skills or agents and workflows. Those folks, I think, will go one of two ways. One is probably more true like marketing operations, and that entire industry and job is evolving at this point where they're going to
Mhm.
maintain systems. They're going to maintain your customer database for HubSpot, the agentic customer platform. Like, you're going to have your database. You're going to have all these different agents and assistants who help your marketing team. There's going to be somebody on your team who like programs them and builds them and maintains them, right? Just like Martech helps us with our portals now. But I think there's also going to be these growth marketers who maybe haven't done as much writing and communication work, but they're great channel strategists and very technical and performance based. If I'm a media buyer who loves living inside Meta Ads Manager and I have my reports and everything, I might be able to write some pretty decent copy. So I can iterate on my ad creative more frequently instead of having to wait for the copywriter. So I do think we are going to start to see people kind of move to this middle ground of, hey, I can do some of the communications work and I have a technical skill set so I can drive performance for the business. For me, the marketers that can do that are the ones that are going to be extremely valuable.
Yeah. It's interesting how the skill sets sort of start to blend, and it allows people who maybe aren't as technical to do some more technical things, and vice versa to, enhance creativity. I definitely see AI as a tool that can help fill the gap for you as an individual, right? Even if
Yeah.
you are like a very creative person and maybe you're just having a moment where, you got no new ideas and you need a little inspiration, a thought partner or something. It's great to have that. I don't think that AI is doing the work end to end for anyone.
No.
But participating in the process and having it expand your capabilities is fun, actually.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun as marketers right now. We get to
Yeah.
learn different skills and ask questions and follow-ups and et cetera. The one thing you mentioned that I think is really important of like having to be creative, and getting some additional support with these AI tools. The one thing with the AI tools that we talk about is the context matters more than anything. So the tool can only help you if it has all the information you have.
Mm.
Who's our target customer? How do we write? How do we talk about ourselves? What's our visual identity, et cetera, et cetera? You're still having to do all that marketing strategy work. It can't do that work for you. And so I think it's important to your earlier question of like, what skill set do I need? Those fundamentals are still critical. Like, it
Mhm.
might be able to help you with like some seed keywords for SEO going forward. But if it doesn't know who your buyer is, what the awareness stage is, the consideration stage is, the conversion stage is, what your product and service catalog looks like, how you win in certain deals, is it pricing or is it features? If it doesn't have that context, it can't make an informed recommendation. And so I think that's really important as marketers, the foundational work, the strategy work, the things that we are trained on and get us excited, that's actually what's important. And then when you feed that into the AI tools, HubSpot, Canva, Claude, whatever your favorite tools are, they can be more impactful because they can make recommendations and edits and provide you insights because it has all the information and context. So I think that's actually going to be critical going forward to your question, is just like be the marketer who understands the foundations
Mhm.
and then be able to use those foundations to your advantage and let AI kind of help you accelerate things.
Yeah, I think that's super important. the like knowing when the AI output is wrong is
Yeah.
important, right? Knowing
Yeah.
how to work with it in a way that it's going to deliver for you understand what the desired outcome is and how you would get there. Like
Yeah.
that foundational understanding is so much more critical than the technical understanding of how it's getting done.
Yeah, in the report, it actually mentions what you just said around knowing if
Mm.
something's good enough, and we talk about, like, the
Mm.
taste, and it's your ability to be able to, like, sharpen the work, and it's
Yeah.
like, once something comes back to you, marketers at this point are saying, "Okay, well, how can I tweak that? How can I sharpen it? How can I make it better? Can I ask some follow-up questions? Can I add some additional context?" That's gonna make the AI work harder for you, and then ultimately kind of be a teammate of yours to be able to do great work, right? Because as people, we miss things too. Like we miss context. And I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I've gone in there. I was like, oh yeah, obviously I should have thought about that and like added it back in. So I think that's in the report too around AI usage is going up and we're kind of putting a lot of stuff out there. I think we just gotta take a deep breath and, like, use
Yeah.
the AI to do better work and then put
Yeah.
it out there, you know?
Totally. Totally. I totally agree. I want to talk about personalization because that was a
Okay.
theme that came up
Yeah.
in the report as well. And,
Mhm.
you know, the report found that almost every marketer agrees that personalization works,
Yeah.
but it's teams are struggling to kind of get beyond the basic level of, the variable tag of the first name and, maybe
Yep.
some like light audience segmentation. Can you talk about that gap, that personalization gap, and some steps that teams can take to maybe expand their personalization or use it a little more effectively?
Yeah, that's a great point. I would say in the report, a lot of marketers are investing more in personalization, but then it's like, what does that actually mean? How do you do it?
Mm.
The best example I have is from inside HubSpot. So, Ari Ike Wilson, who's our director of global prospecting, her marketing team's phenomenal. So once somebody converts on HubSpot.com, there's nurture flows, and we're trying to get you to qualify, right? So Ari and her team actually built something internally using HubSpot where when a contact comes in, we start to understand that contact. So we have their email, we have their URL. With their URL, we can get some additional information around their industry, their services. And her team put something together, and it did take them a few months to perfect it. But essentially, they're writing thousands of one to one emails now. So when someone converts on HubSpot.com, we learn about that contact, we put them into our list segments, but they're not just getting kind of like a cookie cutter nurture flow anymore. They're
Mm.
getting one to one emails based on what we know about that contact. So AI at this point can help us write a great email, right? So before it may have helped us write a kind of like personal email. Hi, it's nice to meet you. This is what I offer. These are our products and services. Now those emails get very specific. It's like, hi, I noticed you actually consume this content on our website. A lot of companies like yours in this industry are facing similar problems. We actually have this product solution that we thought would be helpful. Like, let us know if you want to hear about it. So you can get more tailored in that actual email answer. And I think Ari told me it was something like 45% increase in response rates for
Mm.
meetings with the sales team. So that's where I think marketing is going is getting more into that strategy work of, okay, I have my nurture stream set up, but how can I provide a better buyer experience in that nurture stream? And AI is going to help you do that. It's just going to help you be able to do things at scale that you couldn't do before. You don't have a team who can write thousands of emails, but you do have a team that can edit and craft and sharpen things and work with AI to personalize it for those contacts. So that's something we've built over the last year, year and a half at HubSpot, and we're starting to share some of those case studies externally.
Mm. It's so interesting, but also a little terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, how do you, I don't know, as a marketer, get over the fear of like sending something wrong to the
Mhm.
wrong person, right? Like the more you rely on the technology, everybody knows how difficult it is to keep your CRM clean and up to date. And especially if you have a big team with a lot of people's hands in it,
Oh, yeah.
the thought of like 1,000 individual emails that I'm not reviewing before they go out is terrifying, right?
Sure.
Like, how do you just, you know, have a little therapy session with me for a moment,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
get over that fear?
So that team, I will say when they told me the story, I think it took them 4 months till they felt comfortable sending
Mm,
it direct. Now we were building it from scratch, right? But they took the time to critique every word, every, output, and then give notes, and then try to do it with 5 people, try to do it with 10 people, etcetera, and scale from there. At HubSpot, we have a um, culture focused on experimentation. We would never send 1,000 to
yeah,
1,000 V1. Um, we would try it with a couple internal folks, and we'd try it with a couple like really good customers, and you experiment your way till you're feeling comfortable about it. I will say I do think the tools are getting better. Like I think you're probably not going to need that much iteration going forward. But the your question around like the skill set of a marketer going forward, I need you to write the first email. I need you to shape the brief or the context that goes into the AI. And then I need you to quality check and help build the system. And as a marketer, you can be so much more impactful that way. If you're able
mhm,
to like set the context, set the strategy, edit the copy, and then build the system that can send those emails on your behalf, you're quality checking everything. Sure, you might not be able to check every single one, but it'll get flagged. It's not going to have a high open rate, or you're going to notice something was broken and you're going to fix it like you did in the past. But I do think marketers are getting to that point where you have to understand start to finish the craft work and then the actual like ops work to get the work done. Because I think you can be more impactful as an individual on the team.
mhm. Yeah, okay, I feel better knowing
Yeah. All right.
knowing the
I
inputs and
tried to tell
also just the scaling, right? Like, please don't go build your, like, AI skills and agents and start, like, blasting people with AI
you.
stuff that has not been tested and refined and improved. Because that is actually the problem that I think a lot of folks are up against right now. People are
Mhm.
really exhausted by getting obviously AI generated mass emails. So,
Yep.
or content on LinkedIn that is, we love to talk about the AI slop, right?
Yeah. And you can tell, like, that's the thing is
Totally
I get
can.
frustrated as marketers where I'm like, "You're ruining it for the rest of us." You know
Yeah.
if it's good or not.
Yes.
Review it first, build some drafts, then try it once, see the response, and try it again. And, like, the experimentation culture, I just think is so important. You can't just, like, blanket something. And the other thing is the brands or marketers that are doing more of that spray and pray approach with AI content, it's not performing. So you're not gonna get to your end result or your goal. And so I think that's just important as marketers at this point is, hey, we still have to be in the loop, pun
Mhm.
intended. And it's like you have to be able to use the tools to your advantage, but still do great work, which is going to make buyers want to do business with you. And that's the end goal.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah.
um, Now, there's a couple topics that we started to touch on, and then we circled back to brand. So I want to
Yeah.
get back to some of the things you were saying about short form video, about
Yeah.
influencer marketing. These are some of the more like channel focused or tactic focused
Mhm.
things that are kind of rising to the top in the report.
Yep.
How should people that maybe aren't yet doing short form video or haven't thought about influencer marketing from a B2B perspective,
Sure.
what does a realistic starting point look like for either of those or any others that might have really rose to the surface in the report?
Yeah. So now that you like set your foundation on the brand side and you're going to what we would call amplify, and you need to reach audiences where they spend their time. And we talked about that shift, right? There's just a fundamental shift in consumer behavior online. And so you have to be on multiple channels. And the report also mentions that marketers are investing in more multi channel strategies at this point. Now, multi-channel can be really hard. and it feels like it's expensive. And so one of the things that we do at HubSpot Media, and something we talk about with our customers, is we call it this like anchor and remix framework. So, say you figured out that you're going to build a demand gen strategy rooted in AEO and on page, and then some off page activities. Then you want to do a demand creation strategy where you're getting in front of potential buyers more frequently and increasing the awareness for your brand. The anchor and remix strategy is we're going to anchor to a single media product. So we'll anchor to a YouTube channel that's going to get all of our time and resources, or we're going to anchor to a newsletter. YouTube, I'm an advocate for, just because of the discovery mechanism of YouTube. And I also, for teams that aren't ready to invest in video, I love the newsletter angle because you're building an owned subscriber base. You're building a list. So you pick one of those two and you put all your time and resources into that. And from there, if you put the time and resources into it, you do the keyword research, you do the original interviews, you offer unique perspective, you drop in different statistics, whether it's a video or a newsletter format. From there, we take that content and we remix it for the channels where our audience spends their time and where the LLMs are citing from. So for us, we put all our time and energy into the Marketing Against the Grain YouTube channel, and we have great episodes twice a week. The transcript from that YouTube video gets sent over to our writer, and our writer can use that as foundational material to help write the blog article and the newsletter. Our social media marketer can use that transcript and the video to create clips or carousels for LinkedIn. And so you're trying to reduce your production time. So if you have a small team, 2 or 3 people, that's where I would start. I have a buddy of mine is in Buffalo, New York, and he runs a marketing team that's like 3 people. He has an industry podcast. He's hosting that on YouTube. The clips get clipped down to go out on LinkedIn. The transcript gets turned into a blog post or even potential topics for a future webinar with his customers. But it's all anchored to that original interview that he's doing. And so that's why I advocate for that. You'll see that in the report. Marketers are having to invest in multi-channel, but to get to multi-channel, I think you have to think about, how do I use my resources wisely? And I think you got to pick that anchor piece of content, YouTube or newsletter, just as your starting place.
Mm. Yeah, preaching to the choir. Love this
Yeah.
strategy. We call it cope, create once, publish everywhere. And it's
Yeah.
about like kind of looking for opportunities to remix and repurpose so that you're not creating something new every time you do it. You know, we
Right.
talked in the beginning of this conversation about the importance of that air cover on all different channels and how that feeds into the LLMs, or how that, increases awareness amongst your buying groups as they're sort of doing research. And you can't have a singular social media strategy, a singular blog strategy, a singular, podcast strategy, and all of that. So,
Yep.
using that one piece of content as your anchor, whatever that might be, starting with video is a great way to do it, to make sure you're creating video and written content. But seeing how that can turn into a bunch of different things is just, it ensures consistency on the topics and the
Mhm.
messaging that you're talking about across those channels. And it's a great way to make sure that you're using your resources effectively if you have a small team.
Yeah, yeah. I love the model, and the consistency and message I think is really important. Not only from a brand perspective, obviously, but I talked to Mike King at iPullRank, and he talks about this idea of creating a consensus on the web. And when you're trying to
Mm.
rank in the AI search engines, one of the things is the algorithms are trying to figure out, okay, in general, is this the answer that folks have on the web? And so he talks about, it becomes more of like a digital PR strategy sometimes, where you're going to publish a piece of content, but that same message is going to make its way to the LinkedIn post. It's going to make its way to the Reddit thread, et cetera. So I think that's really important. The last piece I'll say on this, and when we talk about remixing, I think it's important there's no copy and paste, right? Is like, you have to create the content in the format that the channel will deem high quality and will drive performance and that the audience is used to seeing there. If you put something that's like, I don't know, super polished and academic on Instagram or TikTok, it's going to flop.
Yeah.
And then if you sometimes put something that's like green screen or kind of like on the go on the street with an iPhone on LinkedIn, it might not do well. So I think like the format matters. And we talk a lot about form and function. I think if you're going to do anchor and remix, you got to keep that in mind. Is like, okay, I have a system to go from YouTube to LinkedIn to blog post to Reddit thread, but here are my rules within that system to ensure that each piece of content is going to perform.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Yeah. I even amongst like short form video, for example, like a video that performs well on YouTube is you can't just use it on TikTok, right?
Right.
TikTok wants TikTok content. And
Yep.
so, there's a lot of there may be more work needed to make it work for those different channels, which is fine. Sometimes you might say it's not worth it. We don't have the time to invest in that channel. And if you do, just make sure you do it right. Like you
Yeah.
said,
I
don't
love
copy
that.
paste. Now, one last question before I let you go. If
Yeah.
marketers are reading this report tomorrow and they want to do one thing differently, what do you think is the biggest thing that they should take away from this report? And what would you recommend for B2B marketing strategy heading into the rest of this year and beyond?
Gosh, there's so many things.
I know.
We are in a massive shift in how we do the work right now. I think that what you sell is still the same, but if I'm a marketer, at least, and I have a bias here, but I think you really need to think about what is my multi-channel strategy. Like you can't just run one channel and rely on that one channel to increase your brand awareness and drive demand for the business. I think you want to start with your visibility online, like start with answer engine optimization. Make sure that your product pages, your blog posts, glossaries, directories are in a really good place to capture the demand once people go to Google AI overviews or Perplexity or whatever, and they're searching for products, services, pricing, et cetera. Start there, build your foundation. And then you told me one thing, but I think the second thing is, okay, once you do that, there's the multi-channel strategy of like, how do I show up where my customers spend time? And I think you really have to sit down and start to map that and invest in it over time, because that organic distribution across social and YouTube, et cetera, is what's going to generate the results long term.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so great. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. I love the report. Everybody should go out and download it. I'm sure
Please.
everyone can find it on HubSpot.com, I would imagine.
HubSpot.com for sure. Just Google State of Marketing Report. I'm sure we'll be there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in on today's topic. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Marketing Demystified wherever you get your podcasts and join us next time for more conversations that help demystify the complex world of marketing. We will see you then.